I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He is, well, the first timer to make a book. He's offering his debut book, no other than Mr. Miss DC Copland. My apologies. It's
It's
early in the
okay.
morning. Oh my
Uh,
goodness. Thank you so much for being here, Miss DC. And can you please introduce yourself?
sure. First of all, I just want to say how exciting it is to be collaborating and connecting with you. I'm a huge fan of your work. So it's really nice for me to come on here. And I would characterize myself. So I'm a writer who's an advocate for individual thought. My aim with this book is to help clarify and focus the millennial identity, to speak on behalf of the millennial identity, and to inspire others to speak on behalf of the millennial identity. I'm also an intellectual, so I seek to ground complicated ideas in prose and poetry so that other people can understand and relate to them. I'm a societal dropout who believes that the best parts of this mortal journey that we're all on and its healing happens beyond the realm of societal conventions.
Congratulations, Miss DC, for sharing your talents to the world.
Thank
I hope
you.
more books to come. So, what's inspired you to become an author?
Oh, well, I would say the first pictures of me as a child is me um, on, at the desk writing, like writing nonsense words. Like I'm like 3 years old. But what I guess how I think the question points to like why did I want to do this professionally? And because I had something to say, I'm using basically it's not my goal is not to be a writer. My goal is to say something to the heart of my reader and my listening audience, to inspire other people, to elevate other people. So I consider myself an artist first and foremost, and I use the medium of writing as my way in which I articulate my art in the world.
Very well said, Miss DC. So, can you tell us about your writing process?
Sure. My writing process is since I've been like committed and devoted to writing, I would say it's my entire adulthood. So for the past 15 years, my process is pretty much the same. I start out the day with my coffee and my book, and I'll read something inspirational. I'll have my breakfast, and then around 10 o'clock, from 10 to 2, I will write. And for me, having a quota that I have to do 4 hours of writing every day, that's an integral part of my process. I really have to make that quota every day. And then once I'm done with the quota, I'm like, great, okay, let's exercise and move around. But I really have to have the 4 hours a day part of the process. Another part of my process is that my first drafts are handwritten, like they're all handwritten, and then I type it up. I find that that is a way to connect to the stream of consciousness, and it's an integral part of my process is to just yeah. Daniel. I have hundreds of notebooks, just
Mm.
like notebooks of me, just you know, and that's where I get my poetry, my plays, and now this book. Before I was a nonfiction writer, I was and am a published poet and a produced dramatist. So yeah, so but in all those other genres, the process is the same. Another part of my process is that I love airplanes, and I find that airplanes are fantastic ways to just like to get away from the whole hubbub and like focus. Yeah, so there it is. Ars Manifesto. Yeah, so uh, my process definitely is having a quota, writing script, writing by hand, not on the computer for the first drafts, and making use of airplanes and trains and places where you can just like get away from the hubbub of the rest of the world.
What challenges have you faced when you're writing an artist manifesto?
That's a great question because there have been challenges. One of the biggest challenges I would say, Daniel, is that I have a very unique voice and it's very provocative. Like I'm asking my reader some big questions. Like I'm asking them to ask and think for themselves, what do I believe, right? And I'm not giving away like simple answers. It's not a step by step plan on like, so there's books like, 5 steps to happiness, and then it's like 5 steps to happiness, or 20 ways in which you can get mentally healthy. And it's not like that. It's a direct manifesto, like aimed at the heart of my reader, but it's a catalyst for individual thought, but by being a catalyst for individual thought, it also gets people riled up, and people get a little bit can be defensive, you know, like why listen to what she has to say? Well, what's so special about her? That's been a challenge because I've had to practice what I preach and continue the journey and to say something original, even if it does rile, upset a few feathers, if even if it does, uh, even if it does solicit criticism. Another challenge was, am I making this into a memoir, or is this really a book for that it's a cultural criticism? And I started working with an agent, and it seems like what we're doing now is that it is a manifesto of cultural criticism, but it has a lot more personal stories too. So yeah, basically, there's a lot of awesome power that comes with having an original voice, but there's also um, a lot of people that don't like original thought or original voices. So staying the course and being true to myself has been a challenge.
Yes, for sure, lots of challenges. But how do you handle writer's block when you are writing an artist manifesto?
It's a good. Well, one of the ways to defeat writer's block is to take out a notebook, a perfectly blank notebook, and just start going. So, like, if I was to take my pen and say, I would just start in the present moment. I'd say, Daniel and I are having a conversation. It is a conversation about an artist manifesto. And in it, we are collaborating on really great works of literature and art, and exposing what's so interesting about that blah, 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 blah. Basically, like just riff on what's happening in the present moment. And that I find just like not having any agenda, right? Not like going into writing without trying to get somewhere, like without forcing out something unnatural. Like just go for it, write just but what's happening in this present moment right now. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense. So, what authors or books have influenced your writing?
Okay, so there's so many. I am an English major from Yale, and I went to Yale University. So I read a lot of books in college. And my mentor, his name is Harold Bloom. He wrote a book called Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human. And it's all about how what we know of ourselves, of our souls, is due largely to the work of William Shakespeare. Now, whether you believe that is true or not doesn't matter, because it's such a badass, different, original idea that it just makes me want to like, it inspires me to do my own original badass work. Harold wrote like over 50 books, and every book is just original thought, original thought, original thought. Like if you want new ideas, if you want to bask in new ideas, pick up a book by Harold Bloom. And I was lucky because I got to know him. I got to be in his presence. Oh gosh, I got to learn from him. I got to learn how to write from him. I mean, he's the one who inspired me to write every day. Um, and that you have to write every day. You have to wake up and get inspired and read something that matters quickly. Another author that's a huge, huge influence is the essays of Michel Montaigne, who was writing in like the late 1500s. And he was writing about society, about reading, about children, about just the basic topics that are integral to everyday life. So like as he was just writing about the soul, just very like relevant, always timely, but also timeless topics. So that Michelle Montaigne, definitely. Ralph Waldo Emerson, and again, an original thinker. His essay called The Oversoul is one of my favorite essays ever. It's just about how we exist in motion. We are we exist in development. We're not just a static identity. Like you're not just Daniel Lucas, like a fixed thing. You are in a process of developing. Who you are is always like on a developmental basis, on a growing basis, and I think that's so refreshing. And then, of course, actual Shakespeare. I like love Hamlet's "To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of trouble and by opposing end them." I love I love all of Shakespeare. He inspires me to be a dramatist, but also a humanist. To really like write because it feels like how I can connect to humanity. Another inspired voice is Nietzsche. Nietzsche's thought, like God is dead, is such an original. It's an original thought. It's a new idea, and I love how he basically is very similar. I've been called a Nietzsche of my generation, which is the huge compliment. It's a huge compliment to be called the Nietzsche of your generation because it means you have original thought, and in this where we are similar is that we both invented a voice to carry our original thought. It's kind of an acted voice, an acted narrator. So my book is very similar to Thus Spake Zarathustra and Ecce Homo because it's um it's deliberately provocative. So I get a lot of sustenance from Nietzsche. Yeah, I could go on and on about this, Daniel, because I am like I love books so much.
Very well said. Very well said, Miss Daisy. But before we go on, I want to thank you, Feedspot, for being top 10 best art book podcast. We're number three, people. Thank you so much, Feedspot, for being in the list. And speaking of Book 101 review, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my featured author of the month of September, Mr. Joe Clifford, award winning and best selling author. We did already 3 episodes, so please do listen, Mr. Joe Clifford, and support him, buy his book so that more books to come. So, Miss Dizzy, how do you approach the research process of an artist manifesto?
It's a good question too, Daniel. The research process is, well, like I said earlier, I come to, I'm writing from my own experience, but I don't go like plot one A to like, I don't have a list of point. This is what I don't have. I don't have a conventional kind of like, these are my points, one, two, three, four, five. That's not how I work. I work very organically. So I'll write like 100, I'll write. like 100 pages. And then after I've written all that, then I will go through the 100 pages and I'll start crossing things out. And then I'll start understanding what I'm trying to say. So, like, there's an inner writer in me, right? The inner writer speaks, and it speaks through first direct writing experience. And my job is to kind of be an intermediary between my writer self, I would say like my writer self is like my soul. Like, and my job is to be an intermediary between my soul and the audience who I'm trying to the soul is trying to reach an audience. So when I think about the research process, it's like I'm researching my soul. I'm like listening to what my soul wants to say. And then it, and this is probably very unconventional to think of this like this, but at the same time, I'm a very unconventional person and a very unconventional author. So writing writing down what my soul would speak, and then organizing organizing that research into chapters and organizing it into like clever ways of stylistically like manifesting those research ideas. That's my job as the author, you know. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Miss DC, so can you share a memorable moment from writing an artist manifesto?
One of the most memorable moments is when I got feedback from my mentor, who I was just talking to you about. Um, Yeah, so Harold Bloom is like my mentor, and he died in 2019. But at in 2019, I had given him a copy of an artist manifesto, which is what's available on Amazon right now. So it's the earlier edition of Societal Dropout, which can be purchased on Amazon presently. But I gave it to Harold, and what Harold said to me was that, you will not be understood by many of your generation, but you will be a voice of it. And that means and meant the world to me. Like that moment where you like, because everything I do is with the idea that like Harold, I I want his, approval because I respect him so much. So to get the approval and to get him to say that I was an extraordinary writer who will not be understood by many of your generation, but will be a voice of it, that means everything to me. I think that that would be one of the most memorable experiences so far, and the feedback, other people's feedback, that people like it, that they think it's a voice of a generation. I had a guy who he runs Literate Sundays, and he said that it was I was our generation's Nietzsche, which again, because I love Nietzsche so much, for someone to say that, that means the world to me. And like we talked earlier, the the obstacle is that it's hard for people to digest original thought. So the fact that people are digesting the original thought of this book, that means so much to me. And yeah, so that's kind of what's been memorable so far about this journey. Oh, and of
Again, Miss
course being on your
DC.
show.
Again, Miss
And
DC, thank you
being on your
for
show is memorable.
yeah, thank you for sharing your talents to the world. And what would be your advice for those aspiring writers out there?
Yeah. So if you have something to say, people may um, convince you that you don't, that it's not, that what you say doesn't matter, what you think doesn't matter. But I'm here to say what you think matters a lot. I want to know what you think. I want I want people to read my book and then dialogue and be like, hey, I felt like DC's felt. I believe in overcoming my obstacles too. I want to inspire people to say something original, and people might turn away from you, but stay the course and speak the truth, which is your truth, and nobody can tell you what your truth is. Trust yourself. What I would say to a younger writer is to trust yourself. Every heart beats with its own iron thrum. That's an Emerson quote. Every heart beats to its own iron thrum. So let whatever you have to say come out in the words that you would choose, um, to help manifest your truth. Um, Presently, a lot of artists are content with mediocrity, and I would say go the distance, be amazing, be awesome, be your best self, and even if it takes sending out your query letter to like 2,000 agents before you get one, do it. Send out 2,000 query letters and get an agent. Send out like 2,000 book proposals and get a publisher. Um, and my advice is definitely have a quota for yourself when it comes to writing, like whether and make a promise with yourself that you will write 1 hour a day, whatever you can commit to. Like maybe you have a day job, so maybe you can only commit to 30 minutes, but commit to those 30 minutes. Write every day for a certain amount of time and um watch your book take form. But definitely make a promise that you will commit to yourself through the writing of your book.
Yes, commit, people, commit. You need to commit in everything we do. My podcasting, I am dedicated to do it every time. And speaking of my other podcast, please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101, on our fourth season with Chef Alessandro, one of specialty chef in one of five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. And of course, if you're listening, please do purchase one of our merchandise. People, name it, and we have it. So, like coffee mug, accessory pouch, what else? Apron, bento lunchbox, beach towel, and many more. Available on Etsy and Shopify. Again, Food 101 merchandise. And this coming episode tomorrow, we're live with Chef Alessandro. We're gonna talk about Venetian dishes. So please do listen, tune in, people. Our topic will be Veneto. So, Miss DC, what is your short term and long term goals in writing?
Oh, that's great. Okay, well, let's see. Okay, I would say that my short-term goal, what's the difference between my short-term goal? Okay, let me start with my long-term goal. My long-term goal, right, is to be a witness that to testify that we do live in a dark time and that the methods, like the hackneyed methods used to motivate us out of this dark time, are not working. So I'm writing for readers who want to listen to a story about overcoming like the conventions of contemporary culture and the psychological and spiritual illnesses fostered by it. So the long-term goal is to really be a book that is a support system and a catalyst for just the normal everyday person who experiences that society does not give a rat's ass about themselves as individuals, and it's for when I'm writing for the individual who is simply unsatisfied with the care that society does provide. It is not a book for those who do not enjoy critical thinking. So my long-term goal is to be a critical thinker and to write essays um, that are going to support my reader's own individual thought. The short term is that I want this book to read like your best friend, like the person who knows you most in the world, has written something specifically for you. So it's like in the long term, I want lots of people to just rely on DC Copeland as a critical thinker who's going to shake things up with her prose and poetry. And every time she writes something, it's going to be significant and original and a catalyst for more light and more love and more soul in the world. But on a short term basis, I want you, for example, you, Daniel Lucas, I want you to read the book and feel like, hey, wow, it's like someone is like talking to me like as if they knew me, as if they knew my like struggle, as if they knew exactly what I was going through. That kind of intimacy. My short-term goal is to be an intimate friend to my reader. My long-term goal is to be um, an honest witness for generations of readers to come.
Looking forward for your goals, Ms. DC. So can you please invite our listeners to support an artist manifesto?
Yeah, so please go to Amazon and get a copy of An Artist Manifesto, Writing Under the Influence of a Millennial Emergence, or wait a year and enjoy Societal Dropout, a Culture Manifesto for the New Millennium.
So, Ms. DC Copeland, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Marty-
Thank you for giving it to me.
Yes, Marticon people, see you soon.